Welcome to After Hours Theology Club, where two theology profs, Jason
and Joel,
kick back after class for informal, thought-provoking chats about faith, scripture, and life. Whether you're a fellow theology nerd or just curious about big questions, pull up a chair and join the conversation.
how are you doing?
I'm well, yeah. We're quickly moving to the end of the semester.
Oh yeah, we've got about a week left.
Yep.
Yep, at least for the undergraduates. The seminary is going to keep going.
By the way, when we're recording this, obviously those of you listening to this, you'll be probably in the
thick of another semester. So just know that like the end does happen every year, right? It comes along. So even the trials that you're facing right now will come to an end.
Amen.
Yeah. I was thinking about, so I was writing this course for Holy Spirit that we're doing in a couple weeks.
Wait, is the course for Holy Spirit or is the course for students about the Holy Spirit?
The course is serving the Holy Spirit. Absolutely. And it is serving him by enlightening students.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Great question.
Yeah.
And I just realized, I was like, man, it's so hard to write theology. You know what I mean? Like, It's like, where do you start and how do you do it? And yeah. Do you have like a method? Like, do you write like, maybe not like dogmatic or systematic theology, but like, do you, or do you just sort of like kind of go with the Spirit, but, appropriately speaking?
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think, if we were to take our lead from the authors of the scriptures,
Right.
do you feel like there's a method to the...
If there is, I didn't get the memo because the way Paul uses some of the Old Testament's a little confusing.
100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's true.
No, I don't typically have very much of a method. I try to think, what are the questions that might arise?
Yeah.
How do I methodically lead toward a...
Nice. Get through some of those questions.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm sort of running up against. I'm just like, oh yeah, wow. Like, it's great when you read someone else's theology that's done and you're like, yeah, sweet, that's there. But it's like, oh, how did you get there? So anyway, that's what I'm working on these days. So yeah.
Really good.
So yeah, but semester's coming to an end. You're feeling good?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. I'm ready for summer.
Awesome.
Spring, summer. Yeah.
You reading any books right now?
No, I'm still plugging away on my projects. So like,
oh yeah, right.
Massive commentaries on 1 and 2 Timothy and Titus.
Yeah.
That I'm just kind of plotting my way through, just around chapter 5, 17 and 18 and 1 Timothy.
Sure.
So that's the extent of my reading right now.
Yeah. You're deep in the scholarship research mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm reading Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by
Okay.
Shunryu Suzuki. He was a Zen practitioner, I want to say like 20th century. I don't think he's living anymore, but there were these like short talks that he gave on like Zen. It's wild to me because like Zen Buddhism, of course, like it's, an Eastern philosophy practice in a certain sense. But I just realized like how much of a shift needs to happen with like Western paradigms about like thought in the world and then confronting or dealing with an Eastern one. So I'm really enjoying it. But like sometimes he just says things that I have no idea what he's talking about. But the funny thing is like a little bit with Zen is that they're like, don't worry so much about that. Like just sit and meditate. So it's funny at the end of this one chapter. He's basically like, I'm done talking. He's like, you don't even need to remember what I've said. None of this is important. Like, it was just like, I just love how in his talk, he's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, yeah, it frees you up to just like, okay, cool. I'll take what I can get and leave from there. So
I love it.
yeah, I was reading that. And then Silo, it's like a science fiction-y book. It's on Apple TV. I think it's pretty good. There's some cussing, careful, but like, It's good.
Okay.
Dystopian kind of, that's fun.
That's not reading.
No, I'm reading it. Oh yeah. I've watched the show. So I enjoy running on treadmills and watching shows. I've fallen from such lofty, pure heights of running outside with no music. But I really enjoyed that, and then I wanted to get into the book. Yeah, so I've been reading the books.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also a book by Haruki Murakami called City and Its Uncertain Walls. You know what? Here's my strategy with reading books.
Yeah.
Take notes. So I just leave books around my house in places that I know I'm going to gravitate to. So when I gravitate to those places, instead of pulling out my phone, I'm like, oh, here's my book. Like, I'll just pick up where I left off. So yeah, like
That is amazing.
Murakami's in my bedroom. Yeah. Zen is sort of in my like sitting room where I like do some of my study.
Yeah.
And then Silo's like in my living room by the record player. So
Wow.
that's the way it works so far. So
Oh, that's so great. I don't know that I could practice that.
you know what? Just a little bit of, just start with one book.
I should.
Yeah. I'll just save that comment for another time. Anything else before we get into it today?
No, not that I can think of. You?
No.
Okay.
Well, anything I would want to talk about is actually kind of what we're talking about today.
Okay, good. So we are in an election. So as of right now, Canada. So we're Canadians. I don't know how many of our international listeners of the three of you, how many of you might be controversial on the
Right.
America.
There might be new immigrants to Canada from America just
sure.
based on what's going on.
At any rate, I don't know how much you know about the political system, but we are in an election season, and so Mark Carney is currently the prime minister. By the time you listen to this, who knows?
He may be the prime minister.
Yeah. But we thought it'd be interesting to talk about politics and theology.
Yeah,
and
totally.
So that's where we're, that's credit. But
That's exactly what I'm talking about, man. I just feel like, isn't it funny? Or maybe it's the older I get, but like politics just becomes more and more important. I don't know. Like, I'm sure it always has been. Yeah. Or just maybe it's more pressing, right? I just feel like these issues are no longer out there and like whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, decisions are being made that I feel like affect, where I shop and what I think about world events.
Yeah.
It affects my faith too. Like, Jesus, are you sure you've got this one? Like,
100%.
So yeah, so I feel like politics is great. It's a great topic to at least bring into the wheelhouse of theology, to be like, how do these two intersect?
Totally. Yeah. Let's start with this. There is a division of theology called political theology.
Right.
According to Wikipedia,
Nice.
the term which has been used in discussion of ways in which theological concepts or ways of thinking relate to politics.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Okay. Neither of us are political theologians, but
No.
we're going to be today.
Just try. Yeah.
So, okay, what is the first question? What's politics?
Right.
Like, we use that term a lot, the Canadian politics. Sometimes we even talk about it in the church.
Right.
Church politics.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What is it we're talking about?
Totally.
Let's take it.
Well, I mean, like the word, at least it reduces in my mind to polis, right?
Yeah.
I like the sort of the city, right?
Yep.
So to me, it's like the people, the administration, the decisions that are made at the level of governing and administrating the running of the city. That's how I will answer.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly what Oxford Languages says. Yeah, politics, the affairs of the people, activities associated with governance of a country or other areas, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties. Here's where I think is relevant to any kind of group, right?
Yeah.
So debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power.
Right.
I think there's an interesting dynamic of like, there's groups or a group, and then there's power.
Yeah.
And
totally.
individuals that might
Totally, man.
power.
Yeah.
So maybe you've been part of like a friend group and it gets
Right.
political because
Yeah,
it's people vying for power.
Right. Yeah. Kind of like working the angles and,
I want to go to McDonald's. Joel wants to go to A&W. We're in a group and we can't agree.
Right.
There's going to be politics involved.
Right. Yeah. And how do we go about resolving who gets to win the debate or whatever? Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also like, I think one of the things that maybe has prevented politics from being a near view item for me is the belief that it's like, oh yeah, that's what the governors do or the politicians or the mayors or whatever.
Yeah.
Versus like, actually as humans, this is how we organize ourselves. Like, and whether it's a democracy or another form, we all have some conception of the way in which the group should operate. So, I mean, it's like politics isn't now their thing. It's actually something we all sort of have latent within us.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question for you is what role, if any, do politics play in church?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question. Yeah. So I feel like that question comes on the table as like, in my mind, it's like this tangled ball of yarn. Like there's so much in there, right?
Yeah.
Like, so my first thing would be to say, okay, so can you phrase the question again? Because when
No,
you said it, yeah.
So what role, if any, do politics play in church or the church?
Right. Yeah.
So is
yeah,
there a place for politics in the church?
Right.
What role would that have?
Yeah.
What do you think?
So the first thing that I would say, and then I'd welcome yours, is like, I would want to disentangle how many political realms are we talking about when we bring that question in. So to unpack that, I would say like, so when you say politics in the way that question's phrased is like, I kind of hear like a civic, like your city, your mayor, your village, your town, right? So should that be a part of church?
Good. We're going to get to that.
Yeah, totally, right?
Yeah.
But then the other realm, I'd be like, okay, well, what is the church, right? And I'd be like, well, it's sort of like the polis of God, right? The city of God.
Yeah.
So then I'd be like, okay, so now we've got sort of two realms where there's like political. thought or action that needs to be taken. And then another one is I would be like, what about the church politics? Like you sort of said, right?
Yeah.
Like that sphere of, yeah, we're, you might think of the church as the city of God. Okay, well, that's capital C church. What about lowercase c, First Baptist in not Moose Jaw, wherever, right?
Yeah.
What about the way that that's sort of governed and administrated? So I'd be like, wow, there's a lot already going on.
Totally.
So I would say it's not an if, but a how politics are going to be a part of that world. But how would you go about it?
Yeah, no, so we're going to get to that kind of like the civic engagement of the church, if that's even appropriate or whatever. But yeah, I think
two things that arise from me in what you're saying. One is, I mean, congregations already have established kind of like ways of being or gathering.
Yeah.
So there's a political dimension of like an Episcopalian kind of like model, or like a Baptist,
which is like ruled by bishops, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Or like a congregational model,
right? Where everyone gets a vote.
You got it. And there's no external forces in that congregation. So already there's been some politics that have decided the way that congregations are going to gather, or that denomination is going to gather. I think that's an interesting side. And then I think anytime you have individuals in groups, you're going to have politics. You're going to have individuals that are like, I think we should. I remember, the church I grew up in, it was like somebody had donated money and they wanted to use it to pave the parking lot. And it was like $100,000 or something like that, right? It's just like politics came into play because there's an individual who wants this to happen. There's money. And there's groups that are like, we should do something else with that money. Right. So I think there's just those kind of like, it's fraught with these differing ways and perspectives of navigating that. So.
No, I think you're totally right. And the implications of that person paving the lot then, right? It's like, is there sort of quid pro quo? Like now they get more of a say and stuff.
They get a sign.
Like a memorial parking lot. Totally, man. Yeah. Okay, so what about like, okay, and I mean, you're going to take it in any direction you want, but just like, so we do recognize, like, if being a Christian means anything, it means at some level an individual confessing a political statement that Jesus is Lord.
Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, that might be pulling too much from the New Testament context, but Lord is itself a political title, right?
Absolutely.
So there's an extent to which, like, would you agree that Christian confession brings you into a polis that you previously were not a part of? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, when you say it brings you in a polis, like in the sense of like the gathering of the people as a whole, your city, your kind of
like I mean, almost more like you're now a member of a kingdom or again a polis, however you want to think about it, right? Like where Jesus is the Lord, the monarch, the figurehead, the Father, of course, is the monarch, but right, but you're in that now, right? And I guess like, what does that mean for us? Like, so we're citizens of Karen Port or Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Does that mean that no longer like we're now a part of God's kingdom? We don't have to be, or like, are we dual citizens?
Absolutely.
How do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yes. Well, okay, so I think it's fraught with all kinds of further questions, right?
Sure.
Because I think in the first century, for you to say Jesus is Lord is for you to directly contradict that Caesar is Lord, right? So no, Jesus isn't Lord, Caesar's Lord,
right?
So that actually puts you in direct affront to the
state,
the Lord of the day or whatever, right?
Right.
Whereas today, there's a lot of, especially in Canada, there's a lot of people like, oh, Canada is founded on Christian value principles, and we need to return to that kind of, we've strayed away from that.
Sure.
So for me to say Jesus is Lord on the street is not an affront to Mark Carney, who's our current prime minister, or even King Charles, who's the head of state.
Okay.
So like, neither of them are going to balk at that and say, he's concerned, right?
Well, I mean, I think they are at the level of, okay, so if you say, like, so here's the thing. I disagree with your hermeneutic because I'm like, well, okay, then transpose it to the modern day. What would the confession be? Like Jesus's guide, like, or something, like, I'm just saying that it's still political. Like, so if you said, I'm not paying taxes because Jesus is Lord and I'm going to give to his church instead, I bet you Mark Carney would care a little bit, or, Bob Hamilton, the CIA, don't you think?
Well,
So like beliefs are connection to actions. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah. Okay. But I guess I think, by and large, like I got hung up on the taxes thing.
Well, why not? That's a great example.
So here's the thing, like, what about the Mennonites, right? Like the Mennonites, I don't know that they pay taxes.
Do we know any Mennonites?
I remember we had this bed frame built when we were in Ontario, and we had to mail this card. So we basically had to drive to this Mennonite's farm.
Yeah.
He had no wires like leading of electricity or phone leading to his home. We asked him to build this bed frame for us. He mailed us a postcard when it was finished.
That's so awesome.
So like
that's incredible.
Totally disconnected.
Right.
No, I don't know. Right. But I don't know that there's this same sense of like taxation going on there, right?
But I think it's interesting because like it does show like there are different degrees of answering this question, right? Where like, okay, so I would say if we could put maybe no Christian denomination is this way. So I'm not thinking of anyone, but I'm like, think of the Jesus is Lord. All earthly systems of governance are artificial or counterfeit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to like live on the land, which is God's. And like you see, you can take it's extremely far right, we'll just say.
Yeah.
Versus like,
well, if you're,
right
for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm translating. Versus the other, which is like, no, the state is like, or right, you know, sort of totalizing in all decisions about religion and, you know, and all these like public service, whatever happens to be.
Yeah.
And so it's like complete complicity with what the state does. Like, I think there are degrees of the way that we
100%. Yeah. Well, even within congregations and churches and denominations themselves, you're going to have such a variety, right? How is it that we all worship the same Lord?
Right.
And we don't even see, like, we have Mennonites, as I just described, who say they're Christians.
Right.
All the way to, like, people that are like, yeah, I'm happy to serve under an authoritarian, dictatorial regime that is honoring God.
Sure. Yeah. Or the perception there. Right.
Yeah. Right. But I think, both, I think, are, like, there's such extremes, and yet we all claim to worship the one true God.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Okay, so let's talk about what role, if any, the church plays in politics. So, like, I guess I'm not sure. Maybe you could try to make the argument that the church, all of us, should just separate ourselves. Like, there should no longer voting or anything like that, and we just live under this pure ideology.
Right. Yeah. So I'll just put my cards on the table. You can correct me. But like I do think so there, like when we theologize about this, like there needs to be some kind of a conception of like, okay, as we've already identified, God has a kingdom, and we would say that the kingdom is not coterminous with the state of Canada. Like I think we would agree with that. Like bigger than that, whatever.
Of course.
Yeah. So the question then becomes like, so what is the relationship then to the state to the kingdom, right? I think I would take enough soundings from like Romans 13, right? And is it Peter that talks about like obeying the authorities, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's Romans 13 that Paul talks about like, hey, the state has the sword for a reason, right? So like, you know, just mind your P's and Q's a little bit. Like, so I was sort of like, I do see the state as being an agent of God's authority on earth.
Yep.
Because I think that like, a well-organized society in an important sense can reflect the kingdom of God, right? Where there's an authority, and that people who live peaceably with one another and serve the authority, like harmony can be brought about, right? So I think it's analogous, if not, doesn't map onto it exactly.
Yeah.
So I do see the church as being an institution that the state should be interested in terms of promoting goodwill and mutual flourishing. I think that the church also can function as like a prophetic witness against the state, right? To sort of say when, you know, if the state oversteps its bounds, either at the level of authority or morality, the church can kind of be a voice of saying, wait a minute. So we see this, for example, with like civil rights protests, right? Like where the state, you know, had anti-miscegnation laws, and then, you know, civil rights sort of saying, no, like, right, racial equality is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of how I see those two interacting. So I think churches should be involved politically, but shouldn't know their role as like an eschatological witness to a kingdom that is not yet here.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. I think it's interesting because I remember a woman who, when I was pastoring the one congregation, it was election day.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving, she was like, "Oh, vote right."
Ooh, okay.
State, I don't know whether she meant like vote the correct
Right. Yeah.
or
Or vote for the political right. Yeah.
right.
That's right.
So I think it's interesting to think there's that aspect of I think most people would say the church should be engaged or individual Christians should be engaged in voting or elections. But I also wonder about, so then should Christians seek office, right? Like, so as you're describing this kind of like the church holding the state to account, we live in an environment that is a democracy.
Right.
Like you could actually be elected to a position, and then you represent the state, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I wonder how far can we go, right?
Right.
And is that appropriate? I also think about, like, from a theological perspective, I think Jesus himself appeared to submit himself to the state, just simply going before Caesar.
Sure.
Like he did not revolt. He did not. Like, he actually submitted himself. Paul also submitted himself to the authorities, right? To be imprisoned or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't see any sense from Jesus or the apostles as being them resisting, right? They seem to actually receive what the state was going to offer them, whether it be imprisonment or death or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting statement too, right? That I wonder what that says about our political action, because I do know great Christian people who are in parliament, right? Like there are great people. Yeah. I'm not sure where, where I would stand or whether I would ever be comfortable with that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's really good. So there's like two questions in there. So to talk about the office one first, like, I don't know how to answer that. Like that to me is like, that's really hard, right? Because how would you, like, on what principles do you think people should be governed then, right? Like, so in Canada, we would say like we have religious tolerance, right? And I think by that, I think we mean that like all religions should be free to practice their religion peaceably. So we haven't said no religion, but we've said, toleration.
Okay.
And I think that's a really good thing in a pluralistic society.
Okay.
But if I'm a person who believes certain metaphysical things or commitments theologically, I'm not sure how I could be in a position of legislating that for other people where those haven't been the terms of engagement.
Okay.
So I mean, I think Christian morality entails certain things. We talked about the maid episode, right? Like that. I don't know if like then you can therefore on the basis of your vision govern on that,
Yeah.
But I also recognize that it's like, but we're not like a sort of like, even when it comes to our prime minister, like he's not our president, like, right? He's the leader of the party. So it's still party rule, like, right? So we get a little bit of that give and take in there.
Well, and I would raise the question of, is there ever, even in a congregational setting, is there ever a pure, the leader is going to be able to make the right decision for everyone at the same time?
Right.
So even within congregations, you have people that disagree with the person making decisions, whether it be a board or a leader or a bishop.
Right.
I think it's similar in the sense of you now are trying to help govern a whole nation of people.
Right.
Of course, there's going to be diversity. And so if you think I have the mind of Christ, my colleagues don't, right? Well, there might be other Christians there that, those Christians disagree with.
Right.
And I think I agree. It's super fraught.
It is. Yeah.
Let me just highlight too, as Joel was saying, as you were saying, Canada is kind of being I think the term, like, again, this is a Wikipedia kind of doc, but Canada is described as a full democracy with a tradition of secular liberalism, and is egalitarian and moderate in political ideology.
The ideology.
So there is this sense of we are secular.
Right.
We've kind of recognized that in order for these different religions to exist and non-religion to exist, we're kind of secular, right?
Right.
So we're not. And it's interesting, I found it's interesting that secular liberalism is contrasted to religious authoritarianism.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
So that's like the other extreme would be the dictating like religion.
Well, I'm like, Okay, I don't
talk about that.
Well, I'm like, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm like, isn't that what some, like, I just think of like Islamic caliphates, right? Like, that's sort of the idea
Yeah.
where church and state, in this case, mosque and state, right, are very much aligned.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, could we not look at the Crusades? It's
We definitely could. Yeah.
I mean, Christians have done this,
Right.
right? Like, it's this idea of like church and state.
Yeah. So my thing is that it's like, okay, you could probably, like, theologically, you could make the argument for either.
Okay.
So which one's right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I don't know, to me, like, are we just products of being, you know, late modern, you know, living in a Western developed democracy that we're like, oh yeah, ours happens to be the best. Like,
Right.
but
I struggle with any kind of authoritarianism being founded, like looking at what I see in the scriptures,
right,
especially in the life of Jesus. I struggle with any kind of authoritarianism,
right,
right?
yeah,
Like, it does not seem like there is this top-down, condescending kind of like, you must believe. I don't know.
it's not authoritarian, like,
Well, I mean, isn't Jesus God?
well, yeah, but he's not the father. So I'm like, I think it's, you know,
I mean, isn't he the image of the invisible God?
right.
He is the exact representation. I think there's scriptures that would say that. We don't need to go down this road.
Who does Jesus hand the kingdom to? The Father. Like,
Okay.
yeah, that's right out of Corinthians somewhere. Yeah. No, I mean, like,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But fair enough. So we may choose to disagree on that, right?
I would like to state I do not like authoritarian systems either. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but wait. Okay, so to this thing.
Yes.
Right. So your point about checks and balances, even within a system, I think is well heated, right? And I do think, you know, just with Christians pursuing office, like maybe, or I guess it takes a finer mind than mine to know, how do you, even when you don't think something's right, do you vote for something, or like, do you support legislation? Like, that's, I don't know how you do that.
Party whip is just saying.
I suppose, yeah,
You must vote.
and maybe that's like kind of part of this. This reflects our life of faith, right? Where it's like we kind of want to know what's the right, wrong, yes, no, in, out, black, white list.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, well, no, faithfulness is kind of this. It's not a stumbling in the dark, but it's a walking by faith, trusting that, you know, God is meeting us in our weakness and
100%.
guiding what we're doing here. Yeah.
And it's entirely possible to say this is the best of the two options, right? Neither is great, right? I wonder how many politicians end up sitting there saying, I don't like any of these, but this is the best of the worst kind of options.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I don't know.
It doesn't sound like a fun place to be.
It doesn't, but I get it. I can embrace it from having been a pastor.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, there's times when it's just like, I'm just gonna get totally hammered regardless of what we do here.
Yeah.
And I just have to like lean in one way.
Right. Yeah.
And
Oh, that's a skill. Yeah.
yeah.
So with the political, or with the kind of back to the authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Like, what about this?
Yeah.
If God's law is conducive to maximal human flourishing,
Okay.
you'd agree with that?
I think so.
Well, right.
I mean, ultimately,
Then shouldn't we be legislating God's law? Like, you know what I mean? If it's ultimately good for people,
yeah.
shouldn't that's what governments be?
Well, see, and this is where I would kind of stop at, God's ultimate plan is human flourishing, because I would ask, okay, did Jesus live a life of human flourishing? Did Paul live a life of human flourishing?
Right.
So when you have statements of like Paul saying, hey, my weakness shows Christ's strength.
Right.
Would we have looked at Paul and said, there's a life of human flourishing? Or he's like, I've been in prison, beaten up, stoned. Like, I mean, like, he has so many, like, I look at Paul and I'm like, I'm not sure I see human flourishing there.
Right.
So I guess I kind of push against that idea of like, what is human flourishing? Ultimately, there's a human flourishing reality in eternity.
Okay.
But I think I'm not sure that the primary be all and the end all is to bring, for us to bring the new kingdom here now.
Okay.
I think we're called to live in Christ likeness. We're called to live as Christ would live.
Yeah.
And whatever happens. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
so does that preclude taking political office?
Well, that's where I would say God calls probably some people to office, and I don't know what their story. Like I said, I know some people that is not like I know.
But like, wouldn't we say like, well, Jesus didn't do that? Like, is that Christ-like to take the title?
Well, and that's what I would say. Jesus didn't do it. Yeah, just Jesus potentially call people to it though.
So what do you think?
Because he didn't. It wasn't a democracy when he was.
No, it wasn't. No, but like, I mean, by extension.
I would not question if somebody said, I feel God calling me. If they said, will you help me to discern this? I would definitely pray with them and help them to discern it. I would not say definitely not, because otherwise, how do you have good, well-meaning, hope-filled, spirit-filled people helping to make decisions? Right?
Yeah.
I think most people would probably say Canada was founded to some degree on Christian principles because you had this influence, right? These people who were doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think then, like, the more Christians in government, the better?
What do you think?
I know. I want to know your take. This is your line. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I guess I don't know. Like, I think, I struggle to think a majority of Christians in government is going to be a good thing. Because I think anytime Christianity becomes the powerful kind of, it's actually antithetical to what we're called to be.
Right. So do you think, like, when it comes to then Christians and governance, like, do Christians need a unified stance on things like MAID or immigration or the...
Great question. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask. Okay, if we can back up the question of, is there a right political party?
Right.
Because in Canada, we've got like 4 or 5 main ones. Yeah. Right? Like the main ones are Liberal, Conservative, and NDP. Right. You have the Green.
Got to look at our old compass. Yeah.
People's Party. Yeah. Do all Christians vote for the same political party?
Right. Yeah. So obviously they don't.
Okay.
Right.
We need obviously.
Well, because, these, I think just purely demographically, we could say the odds bear out. Okay. Christians do not, right? Yep. Given that these parties are all viable parties, and Canada has how many Christians in it, right? Yep. So probably we're voting for different people.
Okay.
But so obviously I don't think at the level of party, that we need to be all aligned on that. I do think it's interesting at the level of, like, what about certain issues, right? Like, are there Christian responses to certain issues, or, like, can Christians just see it all the way down differently?
Yeah.
Which ultimately just, I want to peel back all the layers and be like, then does being a Christian make any difference?
Right.
Because it's like, well, yeah, you could vote for literally any issue, any party. Like,
totally.
What does your conviction have to do with it?
Yeah. So I would ask the question, is the issue, which is of greater significance, the issue or the heart of the person who's seeking to bring forward the issue or resolve the issue?
Okay. So,
for example, use MAID, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. So is the issue confronting MAID and dealing with it one way or another as important, more important, or less important than the heart of the person who is making that vote, making that decision?
Okay. So let's take, Jane, who's resident of Caronport. What's Jane's heart like, and what are you worried about or not worried about?
I guess what I'm thinking is, if the person is trying to bring, like, legislative change, so they're bringing into the House of Commons, they're bringing a new, something.
Yeah.
They're a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, what difference does it make whether they appear to be living out their Christian values, versus the agendas that they're bringing forward?
Right.
So I can bring forward all kinds of Christian agendas.
Sure.
As a non-Christian.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you give an example? Like, just...
Well, there could be somebody who has no faith at all and says, I don't think MAID is a good idea.
Right.
And I think a lot of Christians would be like, I totally agree with that.
Right.
But the person is not seeking to follow Christ.
No, sure.
They are just living their lives and whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So does that have any bearing on, likewise, what if there's a person who is genuinely, legitimately, like, they're openly professing Christ,
right,
but their agenda, what they bring forward, some Christians would be like, I don't agree with that.
Right. I think it makes no difference.
Okay.
All right. Like, why would it? Like, because, so yeah, the person, comes forward, like, with our little MAID exchange, and believes MAID is an act of Christian compassion, and it's based on their heart for, those that suffer. And lots of Christians say, oh no, we don't like that. But, like, the person's heart is like, yeah, I want to alleviate suffering. Like, so in both cases, the same bill's being tabled, and, the heart is different, or we could say it's unified in the same sense that these came out with different conclusions.
Yeah.
Is that a problem in your system, or?
Well, I guess I was just thinking about, and in that consideration, the person bringing forward, you're saying they have a heart for that.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But let's say there's something coming forward that let's say they're known to be, like, angry and mean.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And
that was like character stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay,
so that's what I'm asking more about,
right? Yeah.
So does which is more important? Is it the legislative changes or is it the character that we're seeking to exhibit?
Okay, I think I'm tracking more.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Matter more to who?
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
So I think Christians,
Right.
God,
Yeah.
those would be the first, the two, not
Right.
necessarily in that order, but I'd
Right.
love to know, like, in my mind, I think God is far more concerned about the character
Right.
and the heart of a
Right.
person
Yeah.
than he is about particular enactment of legislative changes.
Okay.
Right?
Mhm.
Because if we had everybody with a heart toward Christ and a heart
Right.
to love God and love people
Yeah.
and love enemies,
Yeah.
then a lot of the legislative changes wouldn't really matter.
Right. Okay. So the point then is that what we need to be, just looking more at ourselves kind of thing? Is that where we're going to this?
When it comes to politics, we
Yeah.
often talk about the legislative
Right. Like the
changes.
power that this
That's right.
new
The voting
bill is going to bring about.
exactly,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things.
Right.
And we don't talk about the character of the people. We don't necessarily.
And so which people, like when you say that in the
People that are legislators. So
right, but why would we care about their character? It doesn't mean anything. No, think about it. Like, think about Martin Luther King, right? Who's like character-wise had some pretty glaring flaws.
Okay.
But we disregard that, and we like that, right? He's a good civil rights champion.
So let's take it to the church. We do the same thing in the church.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, right? Don't we?
Who cares about the character?
Well, why would we? Yeah. So, I mean, like, I guess at the level of governance, though, right? I mean, like, and isn't this like, we don't have access to anyone's inner life or character. Like,
okay,
we've got reports, sure, but like on a bad day, like we'd all wind up looking pretty bad, don't you think?
Yeah.
So, like, where are we getting this God's eye view of their character?
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I think,
like, I don't know Mark Carney from anyone, right? But like, yeah, I look at his policies and I'm like, these seem sound, like,
right.
and then somebody's like, oh, he plagiarized his Oxford thesis, and I'm like, well, nobody's perfect. Like, I don't know. What am I supposed to do with that?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have great answers for these kinds of things, but I do know, for me, the character is far more important than what's actually being decided.
Yeah.
Because if somebody has a really good character, and they're seeking to love God and love their fellow humans, I like whatever they're going to put forward is probably going to be helpful for us. Right.
So, okay, 2 follow-ups with that. Number 1, the greatest case, and you just have not made it for your argument, is Donald Trump, who, like, I think there are some significant reservations about his character. I don't know him, off surprise.
Right.
But I think that we can almost draw some pretty straight lines between either anecdotally or what he's actually been charged and indicted with before the court.
Yeah.
And some of the policies that are being made there, right? So I think you could draw some...
I think that's probably...
Yeah, it's a good, right? So I think that that's a great point in your favor.
Yeah.
And then the other one, right. I guess, does it have to be the Christian vision, though, of God? Like, I mean, when we're thinking about political rulers, like, are you saying that it's like, it's that person's character in relation to God, like the Judeo-Christian conception of God, or like just anyone's, like basic orientation towards human flourishing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would want their orientation toward God to be paramount. Right. I don't think.
And by that, you mean the Christian God?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. The God we know in Christ. Right. Obviously, that would be front and center and most important.
Right.
Yeah.
In your estimation.
Yeah.
Because it's that relationship is a reductive word, but that relationship that in your mind yields the greatest amount of sort of personal integrity.
Yes. Yeah. Because I look at it and I think if that person is genuinely oriented toward Christ, they will seek to live their life as Christ would live his life if he were living their life.
Yeah. Got it. Right. Yep.
And therefore it results in support and help of people. Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the political system is built in such a way that like parties are seeking power in order to enact the changes that they want to make. Right. And we as Christians, along with everyone else, get swept up into that. Yeah. And we think, this is the party I want in power. Right. Because they have the most number of things that I'm interested in seeing happen. Right. Instead of going, who are the people that are legitimately like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Christ-like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Right. Instead of going, well, I want these things, and therefore this
Right.
party is going to accomplish that.
So how do we navigate that then, right? Because like the promotional literature we get in the mail is, I'm Jane and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, like my policies, right?
Totally.
And so we can just evaluate the policies.
Yeah.
So how do we get that more familiar understanding of their integrity?
Yeah. I mean, I think we can invite them in for a couple of
Totally.
and
Yeah.
just get to know them.
We should invite them to this podcast.
Oh man.
Yeah.
You know what the thing is? I don't know if it's applicable to this, but like a church, you can't just invite your no, you cannot just invite your preferred candidate of choice during election season.
Oh.
You have to invite everybody if you're going to invite one, and maybe the one will only come because everyone else knows it's what their audience.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I remember when I was doing some board development work with my board, that was one of the things that's like, no, you can't as a charity, right? And I suspect similar.
Oh, that's
as a charity, we're not just allowed to platform one.
Dude, that makes me want to just invite everyone to this podcast.
Yes.
See who'd jump in.
I wonder how much diversity there is out here, like in Moose Jaw, right? Like I mentioned, like Ontario, there's a lot more parties that are represented.
Right.
Out here, I don't know, maybe there's 3 or 4.
I think our options are, conservative.
Yeah. But I heard it's
and
like
that's
a Buffalo party. We can invite.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like in your mind, it's much more about understanding that person's heart and motivations and character than it is really about policies.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, isn't that where everything flows from? Like
the heart.
Where else is it going to come from?
Right. Because I guess doesn't that marry us to some unfortunate consequences? Like, what if that person is legitimately the best human as far as we can tell?
Yeah.
But they're going to do some stuff that is ultimately not going to be very good.
Well, why would they then be the best human? Like, what would
because just their heart and their vision and that.
Well, what would be an example of what something they're going to do that's going to be terrible?
Well, let's go back to our maid example, right? Yeah. What if the best human really was maid is the right thing, and they just believe that profoundly?
Yeah.
Then we're let's do this.
Right.
Wouldn't that lead to that?
I don't know. I guess I just think, I guess maybe could you see a world in which that would just be the legitimately.
Well, see, here's my thing is your ideal candidate is Christ the Lord. You know what I mean? Yeah. And because any human isn't going to be able to image Christ perfectly. So we're then therefore going to be going for some policies that, we sure like the.
And I think you're right. And see, here's where I think where the church can then stand.
Right.
Say, just because this is reality does not mean that we have to live that way.
Right.
It's not like anybody's saying you must have made.
Right.
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 That's a different.
Right.
So that's where the church can be look, we don't agree with this.
Right.
And here's why. Here's how we understand humanity. And here's how we understand, end of life care.
Yeah.
Whatever. Right?
Yeah. So this brings up obedience to the law then. So are we, as Christians, citizens of another kingdom, are we allowed to just disobey laws that we don't think are, right or good?
Yeah. Give me an example. Let's say a store's we're only open between
No, I'll give you a better one than that. So I'm pretty sure I can't remember which bill it is, but is it not that you are required by law to I think I could maybe think of a couple. So one is use the pronouns of somebody who's transgender.
Yeah.
Right. So if they've said, this is my name and these are my pronouns.
Yeah.
And you are required by law to use those pronouns. Otherwise it's hate speech.
Okay.
I would think that presents a moral complexity for somebody who believes that, simply changing one's pronouns, right?
Yeah.
Does not actually change a sort of biologically essential reality of a person's sex.
Yeah.
So here you've got the government compelling speech in this case. So it's not just about silencing speech, it's compelling speech a certain way.
Okay.
So that'd be my example.
Okay. So let's get it on the ground level. And that is, let's say you approach me and I'm like, hey, and I refer to you as he, for example.
Sure.
And you're actually, you should refer to me as
she
or whatever.
Yeah, whatever my pronouns have to be. Yeah.
So what you're saying is for me to then say, I guess for me, it would be the question of what would be problematic with me trying to honor you in however you want to be.
Right.
like however you want to be addressed.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I not see that as just honoring you and your
So you certainly could.
Okay.
I think that like somebody could see that also as you and I both know, I think everyone knows, language functions in a certain way, right, within society.
Okay.
Right. And that is to say that like words describe states of reality, right?
Okay.
So if somebody says, I would prefer that you call me she, and I'm specifically speaking about like pronouns because those relate to sex.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Then if you don't believe that that person is,
Okay.
then aren't you being asked to violate your conscience in saying a statement of reality that you don't actually believe is true? That's what I think the moral injury comes from.
Okay. Yeah. It's fascinating because I just think like if my child when they're playing around and they're like, call me a doctor.
Sure.
Well, you're not a doctor.
Totally.
But I can still be like, play doctor. Yeah, we're right.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying is, but you're not playing. This is an actual real life.
Well, it's a real conversation with somebody and they've asked you to change how you understand language to accommodate their perspective of reality. Yeah. You may or may not share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like the child or like, let's say somebody who's has like a mental impairment or something like that they're unable to understand certain things that I might have to change the way I present, right?
Right.
I don't have an issue with that. Like,
because you're doing it because you're agreeing upon the conventions of a game in the case with a child.
Yeah.
Where you're accommodating how can we say this? Like an intellect that is somehow impaired.
Yeah, that's right. That's
versus a person who does not have an impaired intellect nor is playing the game with you.
Yeah, but I guess I would say that how do I know that, right? Like that's beyond my knowing, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I only know you've approached me and you've asked me to do this.
Right.
And if I want to honor you and I want to like care for you, I can address you in the way that you want to be addressed.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, and the guidance should be allowed to compel that, even if you don't believe you should do that.
Well, and see, this is where I think it's maybe a difference between, for me, I don't feel like it's like the reality that I understand doesn't necessarily translate to how I'm going to relate to every single person. Right?
Yeah.
So I think, but you're right. There's a concept, the freedom of conscience and the freedom to whatever.
Yeah.
I think there are two different things that are at play there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that was how we got into this is like, so if the government, so fine, it works for you.
Yeah.
Let's say for me, it doesn't really work. I'm like, I just don't think reality works that way.
100%.
Should the government, am I within my rights to disobey that law?
Well, here's what I would say is I suspect the government might be trying to do that because some people are not actually being treated very well.
Sure.
Right?
I would freely agree.
Okay. Yeah. So I think to understand that motivation and me as a Christian to say, I want to treat people well.
Right.
I want to honor people.
Yeah.
Even if I disagree with that.
Right.
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 Therefore, I'm going to honor them. Right. So I think I get what you're saying in the sense of like if somebody said, hey, you must proclaim Allah is God, or I'm going to kill you. Yeah, that's a different kind of thing.
Is it though? I mean, it's still God. And what they mean by Allah, right, is, I mean, why is that a problem?
Well, I guess I would say those are the things that like.
Why can't we play the game in that case?
Well, I guess I think that's where I would have to decide, am I ready to lay down my life for this? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's not a matter of like, that's a matter of I'm professing now my belief.
Right.
Instead of me saying, hey, can I call you by this? And you're like, no.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
Like, I understand. That's how you want to be addressed. Right. But if somebody came to me and started saying, hey, Jason, I'm going to call you something else.
Right.
I suspect the government is going to step in and say, no, you can't treat Jason like that. Does that make sense? Like, I think the heart of it is probably to try to make sure people were treating them as they would want to be treated. And I think that's kind of a biblical...
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And I think we disagree at the level of like, I think there's a shared reality that we have the right to speak about our experience of and not be compelled to use language. Or, I mean, take it, for example, even the case of abortion, right? So you're a doctor, and the government says to be a licensed practitioner, you need to, conduct abortions.
Right.
Like, can you enter into that person's story in that case and say, yep, no problem?
Right. Yeah, no, because I'm actually being compelled to do something.
Just like you were with the language, you're being compelled to use someone else's terms.
Yeah, I guess the difference would be to say, how am I like respecting that child, right? In terms of abortion. I think I could potentially get to the place of saying, I'm trying to respect what the woman is asking. Yeah, I think there's also a child at play, right? So that adds a further complexity there, right?
Right. And what about maid in that case?
What do you mean? What about me?
Well, so again, you're a physician to be a licensed practitioner.
Yeah, and I would just say I don't feel comfortable like if this is.
Why can't you enter into the story in that case that other person is telling?
Well, I think they're asking me to do something. They're asking me to take a life, right? Which is a kind of a big deal.
Okay, so it kind of depends on the price tag, hey? If it's low enough,
Yeah.
we don't need to worry about it. But if it's high enough, then we do.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, help me understand where you get to, like, even biblically, where do you get to a place where you're like, if somebody asks you to be called by a certain name.
Let's go pronouns. Names, I'm totally fine.
Okay.
Because pronouns to me are a statement about objective reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, so if you say biblically, I'd be like, again, I think it's like the common grace of a shared world that God has made. In the beginning, God created them male and female, right? So we're told there's two sexes. So to engage in language that somehow obfuscates a truth of created reality, I would say that could go against somebody's religious convictions,
Right.
and that they ought not to be compelled to do so. Is on
Right.
Yeah.
So you feel like in some ways
We're deep in political theology now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That in some ways you're seeing it as there's this objective truth that you're crossing over.
Totally. Yeah.
Interesting.
I barely believe in objective truth at all. I mean that. And I'm like, so this is one of the only things where I'm like, to me, that's authoritarian, where the government is overstepped its bounds and saying our vision of reality needs to now be engaged and respected. And I'm like, I don't know why that's compelling.
Right. Well, I guess I can still see the side of like, if this person is feeling mistreated and feeling like how do I honor that, right? And help you to feel like you are a human being, right? If this is what you need, like for me to engage with you and for you to feel like I'm safe, hey, that's okay, right? But I think we all have our own lines. You're right. Like obviously, like
which it probably influences the political theology. Yeah, for sure, right?
It is interesting, right? Because it's like, so here we have differing of opinion. We're both followers of Jesus, and we, there's different political parties, right? And yet we're drawing from the same sources.
Yes. And there's a different conception of the good, right? Because it's like, I think in your view about our transgender friend, your vision of the good is to accommodate that person's conception of reality, right? Whereas my vision of the good might be that that actually speaking about created order in the way it is what's good here, and not necessarily accommodating that, right?
Yeah.
Both of which have pros and cons to them, right? Right. So it's fascinating how like this really drills down to what is our conception of what is true, good, and beautiful as well, right? And then how do we bring that into greater and greater existence through politics?
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Maybe politics isn't the place to do it. Like, and by that I mean, like, it seems like I got this from a friend I was chatting with on Sunday, but he sort of talked about it's the artists, the poets, and the philosophers who like create this vision of reality and goodness, and it's the people that receive and catch that. And it's the political class that then wants to harness that in order to kind of like organize people, right? Like politicians don't really give us the vision of the good in a way. Like they're tapping into something that we have. Yeah. Well, where did we get that from? This is kind of an interesting question. But...
Well, and I think we don't have time, but even the whole movement that's happening these days with like more like what is it described as? Like the movements of like
I'm like Whole30.
What's that?
I don't know. I said Whole30, like the diet, where you eat whole foods.
Oh, no. I'm thinking more of like just the kind of like the baseline. People are angry and there's populist.
Yeah, popular, right? For sure.
So this kind of like this movement, which I don't associate with like philosophy or.
No, well, I mean,
I guess, but to me, I think it's
bad philosophy. Maybe.
Yeah, it's more basic kind of
tapping into maybe more human vices than human virtues. Maybe, yeah.
Which I think then there's like the political movement that is like people are angry and upset,
which
leads in all kinds of the places, right?
Yeah. Do you kind of see that happening right now?
I mean, I see it happening all over the place. Yeah. I mean, when I was over in France, there's a woman who's just like, oh man, it's taking over Europe. Like so many countries are like doing this. And there was somebody referring to the United States. That person's referring to the US and what was happening.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't understand. There's all kinds of things that I don't understand about it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's this, I'll get the passage out of, it's Timothy, and it might be near the end of, chapter 5, Let me see if I've got this.
2 Timothy or 1?
I want to say it's 1.
Okay.
So it's
Take a little wine for their...
no, for the stomach. That's a
Yeah.
great one, right? So
While Joel's looking this up, by the way, if you're interested as an evangelical, the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, there's a lot of political work. They help evangelicals think through and respond to the social, legislative, and legal issues of the day. So they have a lot of great things on their website.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, that's really good.
Yep.
Man, I can't find it, but I just like in Timothy, Paul talks about God's grace, which like, and the word he uses is paideia, like it teaches us, it civilizes us. It's really interesting. And it seems like the author of Timothy is talking about how, like, yeah, there's a training in righteousness and sort of a humanizing that happens in the faith, and just getting to populism, like that there is a kind of a sort of like a training to see the good and bring out that which is virtuous in us, that we want to be the social project, not the lust for power or discrimination or whatever that can sometimes be part of our vicious side, right? That like it just seems like there's these competing schools of virtue or vice out there, right?
Yes.
And maybe we're not entirely aware of those forces that are shaping us, right? But then I do think we have these political movements where, yeah, people are catching a vision of some kind, right? And again, like I would say it's still being distilled by poets, philosophers, and whatever, but they're bad ones. Like they're ones that are not urging us towards virtue, but urging us towards vice. And then once that gets in the water, yeah, it's a really serious thing, I think. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
One of the things I think about is a liberal democracy. We live in a liberal democracy,
Right.
and sometimes we think about what is a pure democracy and the difference between a pure democracy. And liberal democracy doesn't mean that it's about the Liberal Party, but it's this concept of pure democracy is basically like the people that,
Right.
the majority rules, right?
Right.
Whereas a liberal democracy is that it actually is supportive of minorities, so that even if the majority decided something that was going to take away rights from people who maybe would be considered
disenfranchised.
that's right.
Yeah.
That actually there's systems in place to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do see a bit of a movement away from that's happening maybe in the US right now.
Right.
Is that the marginalized voices are being taken away.
Right.
And
yeah. And that's like, man, that's good, because even as you're saying those things, I was like, well, now I'm going to say a bunch of offensive things to counter you. And the reason was, well, but I'm like, but okay, this to me is like, yeah, this is like cultural catechesis, because I'm like, I can hear the response of like, so when you say that,
are people that are our 3 listeners that are
oh yeah,
for you, like, please post your comments if you
fire it up, light Jason up in the comments and me. Okay, so like, when you talk about like marginalized people being disenfranchised, that's why we need a liberal democracy. Like, I feel like I can hear this counter voice being like, no, because marginalized voices have been so elevated that it's no longer good for the common person. So the token examples that are used, I do not hold these views. The token examples that are used are like open immigration at the US border, right? So where thousands of migrants are crossing the border every day and they're taking American jobs, right? I don't believe that. I'm just saying, right? But right, that's the way in which like the counter narrative to some of those things, because we're for like, liberal democracy, that sounds amazing. And then, okay, so then you've got that, and then you've got, and woke policies like DEI is making it so that the best people aren't getting the right jobs, and then our economy suffers, right? Or, like transgender men in women's sports, right? Is another example of like where the elevation of the minority has gone too high. So it's just like, I totally agree with you. I just think it's fascinating how it's like, those talking points are exactly what's at debate in some of these political, conflagrations we have, which is like just fascinating.
Absolutely.
Again,
and there's obviously times when it gets a bit imbalanced, right? But I think if it ever comes to the place where it's just simple majority rules, it's right. Like there's gonna be people that are gonna get trapped.
Absolutely, you're right. Absolutely about that. And that's, I think that's maybe more where you're right. We have cause for concern where it's like, if we're giving ourselves over to just Vox Populi, Vox Dei, voice of people, voice of God, and we're going to be in trouble for sure, because no human is going to be able to execute perfect righteousness, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. That's great. That's a really good warning. Do you see that? Like, so it's, for some reason, it's so easy to parrot these ones in the States.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to think of our own context.
And I mean, Canadians are fairly, I think for the most part, we're pretty like kind, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the citizens of the States, for the most part, are too.
Yeah.
Some of the, governing class, a little questionable, but
yeah, that's right. We're maybe a little bit less like aggressive.
Right.
Maybe in our...
I would say, like, I think there's some concerns. Like, I mean, this would be a good theological, thing to go over. Like, but you think about like safe injection sites, right, and sort of like government posture towards open drug use. Like, I think that's one of those things where, the government's trying to elevate those that are being discriminated and that suffer from addiction issues. But then you've got the general populist pushback, which is like, but I don't want somebody on the public bus using drugs in front of me and my kids. Absolutely. Like, so there are still some of those issues, I think, that emerge, right?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting to think about people that work in various sectors, right? Like, if you work in law enforcement, like there's people at the military unit, like there's in law enforcement officers, and there's like prison warden, or like prison workers. And like, yes, they come into direct contact with those kinds of things. Whereas you've got other people that are on the like social work and things, or like more compassionate, advocating those ones. Right. So you have this vying of like, depends on where. And some people are raised in a household of people that are, that do these kinds of things for work. And so your perspective, your paradigm is only ever this.
Right. Yeah.
And this is where I would say, this is the beauty of education, right? Because it actually opens your world up to help you to realize that there's so many things going on there, right? There's so many opinions and people and perspectives. Right. And I mean, that's where it comes like right back to politics. That's what it is, right? It's trying to hear all those voices, trying to make the best decisions based on it.
Yeah. So is where you, would you lead our viewers? And I'm seeing the virtue of your approach. Would you view our listeners as, or trying to guide them as saying like, look, your allegiance to Christ and your following his example comes before you're voting for a particular party and an enactment of some political program. Yeah. And so politics is really a secondary question when it comes to discipleship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So when you vote, who do you vote for?
I haven't voted for a while.
Jason doesn't vote.
I don't. Yeah. Like,
why don't you vote? I mean, and like, you're so good about just owning that. Like, why don't you vote?
I don't. Yeah, because it makes people angry. Like, if people get upset about that, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
why do you think they get upset?
I think they feel like we're going to lose our democracy or something. Right. That somehow, which I feel like, well, you can vote and still lose your democracy, right? Like,
sure you can.
So I guess I think I see the good of all kinds of different policies. And like, I don't know, typically I don't know the people. Yeah. And I wouldn't want somebody who has 30,000 constituents to then have to have coffee with me and whatever, right? Like, I don't, like, baseline, by my life has not changed all that much, as the different government, and I think federally, right, like municipally maybe it's a little bit different, but federally it's my life has not really changed all that much, whether it's conservative or liberal. I think those are the only two parties I've ever been or when I've been an adult. So
so would you vote if you were in like a really you'd think of a different nation, but like where it was really politically contested? Like, would you vote in that case?
Maybe if I felt like it was actually going to mean something, and I felt like there was a real thing I felt strongly about.
I'm just realizing now that you're a consequentialist and I'm a deontologist. And it's like, I'm like duty ethics. Like, you have to vote. It doesn't matter. And you're like, well, how's it going to affect? So like, it's just real good. Yeah. Okay. So that's good.
You answer those questions.
Yeah. I mean, when I vote, I usually vote, like, so you and I jumped on the vote compass. Yeah. CDC's got this vote compass. Yeah. We got to get this pumped out early so people can use the vote compass. Like, so I try and do a little bit of reconnaissance at the level of intelligence, right? Like, hey, what are these basic parties going for? What are the issues of the day? And then
And I were 4 represented, 5 represented.
yeah, I think something like that.
Greens were represented on the word.
You know,
Oh no, they were.
yeah, there's
And Stone Green were on one side
up
of the
in
People's
the,
Party
in the top right or left. Yeah, so Green and NDP are way up in the top left.
Yeah.
So socially progressive and economically left. And yeah. So this puts me, I would almost say equidistant to the liberals and the conservatives.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Yeah. So it's like, here's what I try and avoid. I try and avoid being a single issue voter, like where it's like just made or whatever,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Try and avoid that just because it can yoke you to a lot of other things that you may not want to be a part of. And then the other thing is like, I genuinely try and ask myself, what is my conception of like the way a society should run?
Yeah.
Who's the closest to that? And I'll vote for them, right? That's kind of, horseshoes and hand grenades a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would agree with you that it's like, it's hard to see really concrete, like, oh yeah, now that the liberals are in. And I think one thing I've learned from you in this podcast is like, yeah, like it's so easy to get like the eschatological horizon eclipsed by the political one, and then it's like, it's about Pierre Poilievre getting in,
Right.
getting the liberals out, right?
Yes.
Lowering tax. And then that becomes like our horizon. And then, yeah, when I meet you who voted green, you're now a bad guy, right? And I'll miss out on that long view, right? So,
And I would ask the question: if Jesus says, "Bless those who curse you,"
right,
like love your enemies,
Yeah.
what does that actually look like when we're
Right.
creating these and I think Canada, yes, we have some polarity, but
Yeah.
like the US is just so split, right? Like it's just so segregated.
yeah,
What does that mean when you think about like
right,
Christ saying, "Love your enemies"?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
right.
And you're not even like, you're both the same, like we're Canadians or
Yeah.
Americans, and you hate each other because your political parties are different.
Right.
Like it's just like that to me is like, I can't even get my mind around that.
Yeah, yeah. To me, it's super simple. Like,
Yeah.
well, I'm like, how hard is it? Like, you just know your neighbor votes for the wrong person, and you're like, that guy's a traitor. Like, get it? It's so easy.
There it is.
I think it's the easiest thing to do, and I'm like, that's the sin nature is coming out, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna other that person and impute all sorts of bad faith ideas to them, and then demonize them, right? Like, I think that's how it happens.
Totally. What do you think Jesus would be doing? Let's say Jesus lived in Camport, 25.
Yeah.
He's in like one of the trailers or a house or whatever.
Yeah.
Is he got a sign on his lawn? Like,
Right.
what's he?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he would not be interested necessarily in the
Okay.
political race.
Okay.
No, I think he'd be far more interested in our hearts, our motivations, our desires. Yeah, I think that's probably where
He wouldn't be like, hey, you know what? The conservatives are trying to bring this.
right, and we need to. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, maybe things would change with it being a liberal democracy and not a Roman occupied Judea, but who knows, right?
Do you think he would run?
Here's my problem with this is that it's like, I don't find these kinds of questions helpful because it's like, I can imagine Jesus doing all of it. Like, yeah.
Could you imagine him running for a political party?
Absolutely, yeah.
Could you imagine him running for like a far,
Like the green?
or the far right or whatever?
The far right. It's a little harder, but yeah, just righteousness, like absolutely. No, I mean, obviously not, but like, or I don't know, maybe,
Being prime minister.
I do think, here's my exegetical reasoning. Jesus being given a lot of opportunities to sort of jump into the political doesn't really do it.
No.
Yeah.
By the way, he does say, "Go catch that fish and give the."
Yeah, and he pays the taxes eventually.
Exactly. So I think
You think that story happened?
reference of reference to, of course,
Yeah, fish just happens.
coins. They have coins
Yeah.
inside of them that's swallowed.
Yeah. Totally happened. Yeah, and then he pays his taxes with it.
Yeah.
There's like an apocryphal story where it's like Jesus like says, rend under Caesar what is Caesar's, God is God's. And there's like one that says like, and mine what is mine. Like it's like a Gnostic kind of take on it or whatever.
Interesting.
That's sweet. Yeah.
Maybe that's for next time.
Maybe, but yeah, no, I think we've solved it. Yeah, I think so. We got
Let us know.
let us know who you're voting for if you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell us that, but it'd be interesting to know.
Mhm.
I do think that this will be my last comment. If I had a word to my students, it would be like, pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on politically. Like I don't think you need to vote for a certain party, and I don't think you need to take office. But I think you need to pay attention because, like, to me, it's this election cycle in particular that has helped me see the way in which, like, our passions, and I mean that in like the comprehensive sense, what we think is good, what we think is bad, gets stirred up and it creates these interpersonal experiences where like these tensions get heightened and like our vision of the good gets eclipsed, and so it's like, so just being aware of like, what are the forces that are shaping me, what are the messages I'm receiving, how can I respond appropriately, it'd be kind of where I leave it. But
I love that.
yeah,
I would just say vote right.
Yeah, in the right.
I know.
Vote correctly.
Yeah,
that's what I know you mean.
Something.
I saw his vote compass. He's nowhere close.
No.
For right. So, all right. I think it's it for this week.